today on Corinne's Picks, we have Jeanette Madden. Welcome to Corinne's Pick. Today we have a miraculous artist from Mexico. Her name is Jeanette Madden. She's a Bay Area artist that lives between Mexico and Oakland, California. Her claim to fame is in digital art. When I knew her as a painter, she painted these amazing mixed media pieces. One of which, I saw in the Studio Museum of Harlem. Her work really represents the best in digital art. I was just really blown away with what this arena of art, what you can do with digital art. And I thought that it would be worth having her on our show to see what her journey and exploration of the medium has been. So, Jeanette, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Corinne.
Can you tell us a little bit about your work as an artist and basically your beginnings as a mixed media artist and now as a digital artist?
Well, everything kind of intertwines in and out. Like a lot of people, I was an artist from a child, but didn't know what that was, so I didn't really do it. My first career in art was graphic design. And I did graphic design for 30 some years. And then my next real painting job was as a caricature artist, which I still do to today. And that's basically entertaining, drawing caricatures live at events. So the two kind of converged. I did the graphic design the old way with a T-square knife and then transformed to the computer, and which was a new way of doing graphic design. And I did that for years. I learned how to use the basic apps like Photoshop. When I quit that and started doing caricatures, we used the old school method, with a paper and a marker. And then digital began to integrate into the community, where we literally do live caricature gigs on an iPad or similar tablet. You have a monitor up so people can see what you're doing. You print out 4x6 prints. It's a lot of fun. It's a wow factor. So in doing that, I got used to the iPad and I started playing around with different things until it became my art medium. In between, of course, I had the years of doing traditional mixed media and loved getting my hands dirty and, just very experimental. Let me throw this substance in with these beads and wire and, did a lot of just exploratory fun stuff. So I was very hands-on. The iPad is not hands-on in the same way, but it's a great generator for ideas. You can pump them out. You can try it, delete it, save it, add to it. You're never limited, and you don't necessarily have to ever lose what you've done. You've got a piece in front of you, say, well, I'm going to try this, but in the meantime, I think I'll save a copy. So then you can move forward with the product, still saving the original. The amazing wealth of techniques and whatnot. If anyone knows Photoshop or have seen it operate, the app I use is kind of like a mini Photoshop. And you have a lot of control of colors, layers, etc. I think that's about it. We'll explore more as we go.
So I think it's really interesting for the audience to know that actually the set that I'm sitting in front of today is one of your digital art pieces created on, I guess, your iPad?
Yes.
So before we get too much into the digital pieces, I do want to explore a little bit about, with your mixed media, your traditional art pieces, just so people get a full view of who you are as an artist. So if you don't mind, we're going to show maybe 5 of your traditional pieces, and maybe you can give a name, to the name, and basically just a little description of where you were in terms of intellectually, what you were thinking about, what the pieces were about, as we show them to the audience. Okay, can I have
Okay.
the first image, please?
Oh, wow. This was before I really considered myself an artist, that I would actually be showing artwork. And every few years I would draw a piece. This was one of the most successful. It's pastel. It's called Woman with Flowers. I used a reference for it, but made big changes. Like the reference was blonde. That gives you an idea how I changed it. A lot of my pieces are kind of like prayers or inward journeys, and this one is definitely seeking or praying.
And I think it bears mentioning that this is a piece that was actually in the Studio Museum of Harlem and that is in the catalog for that show called Black Romantic.
Yeah, yeah, that was quite exciting.
Okay, so can we have the next image, please?
Okay, I don't know if it's very clear. This is when I was having so much fun with mixed media. The background is layers of papers that I bought, decorative papers that I buy at the art supply store. I like beads, and you probably can't really tell, but there's the little lines on the left side going up the canvas are literally sewn thread with beads on them. The cowrie shells in the corner, that's a process called photo transfer. You take a laser print and transfer the toner right onto the image. The figure, the color is yet another piece of paper. I did some drawing on it. So it was just really a lot of fun to just throw things together and not have it be typical. I like things that are kind of atypical.
And what about this subject? What I noticed that both images you're using, black women in a very elegant way. What are you trying to say with the image of the women?
Um, I would just say surrender or prayer, vulnerability, just being human and not presenting it with any particular idea behind it. It's strictly like a inner journey. You'd have a person. I hope a person can receive it. It's kind of like call and response. I put the call out there, and their response is their response. Meaning, I hope they feel something, get something. I would think it would be more inner and emotional and visceral than it would be intellectual. And that's basically it. If I had more words, I guess I'd be a writer. I don't have a lot of words. My pieces, they have names and they don't. Whatever that piece was originally named, I don't know what it was now. What's most important is the statement.
And it's really sad because these are the images look quite flat, but I mean the surface of the painting we just saw is absolutely, it's amazing, the texture of that painting when you see it in, your traditional work is work that you really should see in person. Anyway, can we have the third image, please?
Ooh, I see that sometimes, and it kind of surprises me. I have friends that have prints. This was very much about digging beneath the surface. There's some angst to it, the sort of inner journey and sometimes painful, unpleasant memories, ways that we've been thwarted or held back or programmed. And if you start digging beneath the surface, you get to the gold. You may see the little reference to the gold in the lower left-hand corner. Okay, lower left-hand corner. And the stripping away of the eyes is like the color portrait you see is kind of like a mask, and that's not really what's going on inside. So that's what I was saying with that piece.
Wonderful. Can we see the next piece, please?
Aha. Okay, that's very early on, playing with materials. And of course, obviously, I do figures and faces. I like that a lot. And just letting myself play, it's so hard to see what the materials were and what was happening. But it's definitely not just paint, it's all on paper, different pattern, paint, textures and whatnot of handmade papers and some netting wrapped around the upper half of the canvas and some string and beads wrapped around that. Again, there's that sense of mystery, like you don't really know what's going on underneath the surface, and that hopefully people can identify with that. There's no process in me that's saying that in terms of my concrete thought, but I guess what I'm trying to convey is like there's a lot more going on under the surface than you see, and hoping people recognize that for themselves so they understand that there's so much more than is apparent.
So is the person in that image anonymous? Is that you, or
Yeah,
does it's an
no, it's a
anonymous figure?
yes.
And why is part of his face is obscured? That's basically to say that that everything's not on the surface. That everything's basically inside of him.
Um, I can't say that's what the composition is. It's kind of the idea behind the piece, but the basically what you're seeing when you see part of it dark is that he's kind of side lit. Like if all the light comes from one side, you see one side of the face. And yeah, so you could see that one side of his face is lit and the other's dark. So that's basically as if you held a light up to one side of his face. It's just something I've always liked is that stark contrast.
Okay. Um, okay. So I think we have one more before we go to break. I think we have a PSA coming up. So can I have the next image, please?
Okay, that was fun. I had so much fun playing with different approaches and materials. This was literally a piece of wood, and I went into an illustrator and drew a shape, passed the wood and the shape off to a sign company, and they literally cut on a plotter type machine. And then I used metal and I used mud cloth, and I hammered the metal on with nails. This piece is called Necessity, and it's about inventing the self, and that I don't even know if I have any words for it, but you could see the softness, the beauty, the decorative part of the cloth, and then you see this hard, steely factor, which is like it's necessary.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing work of yours that was more like sculpture. I wish I had seen that piece in person. We're going to go to a break now. We have some PSAs to show, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about your digital art.
Okay.
Welcome back to Corinne's Picks. We were talking to an amazing artist, Jeanette Madden from Mexico. Um, Before the break, we were looking at your traditional pieces, and I would love to explore some of your digital pieces. It's a subject matter that I know nothing about. I've never done much with digital art, so I'm going to leave it to you to I guess discuss some of these pieces. So let's look at number 6, please.
Okay, this was pretty early on in the process. This was kind of my breakthrough and got me going in terms of art. This is what you call, it incorporates found poetry, which is simply taking a page, book, newspaper, anything, and utilizing the words that on that page, picking and choosing words that, if you're a poet, you would write a poem. If you're me, you just make a phrase. And then once I had done that, I did that with layers. So that's on a layer, and then I painted on another layer. And anyway, it's kind of hard to explain, but this is when I probably the most expressionistic work began to happen, where it just happened. You know, there was no preconception of what it was going to end up as. It just started with the words.
So actually, I think I made an error. Um, is that still your traditional piece, or is that digital?
Oh no, digital. That's digital.
That's digital.
Yeah.
Oh, so so you're cutting and pasting words onto layers of that piece in Photoshop in like a program. What
No,
what program are you using again?
it's called Procreate,
So in pro.
and okay, it's called Procreate. And if a person is familiar with Photoshop, you literally are like as if you took a piece of paper, you did some art, you took a transparency and you layered it on top of that, and you took another transparency and layered it on top of that. Various stages of the art are on different layers. The bottom layer of that piece is a photograph of a book page. And I put that there, and I took the book and I just scoured it for words. I go and highlight any words I liked, and finally ended up with a phrase. That's there on the bottom layer in the on the iPad. Then the layer above it, I began to actually color and draw. And then there's a technique where I can uncover the words that were meant to be in the phrase. Um, Without you coming and taking a class, I can't tell you much more. But it was the richest, most fun adventure. You know, I'd always admired found poetry, and then to be able to take it and see that it would just take on a life of its own. When I'd start, I didn't know where it was going. And I'd say most of my traditional media work, I knew what it was going to be before I did it. So it wasn't very freeing for me because that's just the way my mind worked with materials. But with the digital, I can more often do things that I don't really, I know what I'm aiming at, but I don't know every move. I don't know every color. I don't know just exactly how it's going to turn out. And it's a lot of fun. One thing about digital, if I was a painter, I would be alla prima. It would just have to be done in one session because I like process if it's fun, if the process is fun. Other than that, I just want to do it. I want to just put all my energy, my movement, everything into it and just do it. Let it be happening, not a painting. And digital allows me to do that. I might still work in 2 or 3 sessions, but it's maybe disjointed, but it's still a few hours. I used to feel like, oh, I'm cheating. It doesn't take long. And a friend of mine said, look, that took you 45 years in 2 hours, okay? So I began to get it, that it's a different tool. It allows for a different kind of expression. It can be quick or it could be detailed. You can use it any way you want, but it does allow for a really quick expression if that's what you like to do.
I know my experience in working in Photoshop that it allows for a lot of accuracy and control that sometimes when I'm painting, maybe the brush isn't saturated enough, or this, it's or the material is too liquid. A lot of times the errors, mistakes lead to wonderful discoveries, but sometimes you just actually really want what you're trying to do
Mhm.
without making any mistakes. I mean, I find the work you're doing with the words, um, and I forgot the name of your program.
Pro-
I've already forgotten.
Procreate.
Procreate. So I mean, it definitely sounds kind of inviting to me as well. So let's look at the next image.
Joy. I can't even quite remember the phrase I'm looking. It's anyway, it pure joy and light. Can you read the phrase there?
It's too far away.
The
I'm an old lady
world,
who wears glasses, so
the world is my teacher. So it's just kind of a celebration of it, all that is. And again, I do the little phrase, and then what happened to it was just what happened. And it's just this to me is delight.
okay. Does does a computer program allow you? Have you found that your color palette has changed because you're using um, computer program, whereas your color palette might have been similar, a little different, um, in traditional painting?
It's different, but what I find really as I do digital, I'm really settling more into a palette. And believe it or not, it's as simple as that piece behind you, red and kind of yellow gold. I can use other colors, but I find that I keep going back to this and I'm very happy with it. I've never been a colorist in terms of, even as a graphic designer, it's like keep it simple, black and one color or something like that. I wasn't real creative with color. So I'm finding the red and the yellow for some reason is just a real comfort zone for me. I can express joy, sadness, any number of things with those colors.
And I
Let
see.
me say a little. Let me say a little more about that piece and all the pieces. Again, using layers. What I did with that piece and others you'll see is I borrowed. I went on Google and I'd find patterns, whether it be fabric or whatever, and I would store those in my library. And then you know what? I'm talking about the piece behind me now, actually,
Uh-huh.
'cause that's what I was looking at. So I found these two patterns I liked, and you can see them there. And then the photo is Alvin Ailey Dancer's Revelations. It's one of those pictures, if you're familiar with Alvin Ailey, you know immediately when you see it, that's Revelations. And it's just a powerful piece. I can't say in words what it expresses. You just it's like dancers. Again, they are dancers, not writers. So you get it viscerally as they move. And all that you see, there's three layers. One has one of the patterns, the other has a second pattern, and then the photograph itself is on a layer. And you're able to manipulate it where you show, you push, you pull, you remove image, you replace image, and you can just go back and forth as much as you want. I won't try to explain the process other than that. The use of layers and pre-existing images is what allowed me to create this piece. As I move forward, I'd still like to use the pre-existing patterns and various things, but the creation is mine. There's no way you can look at it and think that was anyway preconceived by the nature of the patterns or the photo.
I think this is probably my most dramatic set design that I've had so far. It looks like something from Metropolitan Opera. Um,
Oh wow.
so um, let's go to the next image.
Okay. Again, it's the found poetry, and again, just playing with what happens. And I wish I could show you the process because it's just like any other painting. You don't really know how it was done as you look at it. And so just the fun of showing the different layers and the colors and how you take away and put color in, take it out, remove areas is that was the fun of this. And again, I'm trying to read the phrase because it's kind of important. I'm gonna give it up. I can't do it. But anyway, that's I see the last phrase is full of light.
And it's really interesting because I did a stint of selling art on West Broadway in the Village, in Soho, in
Yeah.
Manhattan, where my art had kind of incorporated a lot of graffiti and street art, and writing, the written word was a very important part of that work, that body of work. So, I'm just enjoying seeing those images and seeing, being able to read as well as enjoying the
Hmm.
painterly aspect of the piece. Um, okay, so I think we have about 3 minutes left, and so let's look at briefly one piece of art, and then I guess we'll have to have you on again.
Thank you. I love to.
So, um, okay, so in the next piece of art, I think we looked at three of your pieces that actually had um, words in it, and now we're going to be looking at images that are. This is when you move to the next phase, right? You said
Right.
this is the next phase of your evolution into digital art. So can you
Yeah,
explain a little bit about this?
that's more recent, just like the one with the Alvin Ailey dancers. I wanted to, I have a strong thing about what a wonderful culture we've created here. We were stolen from Africa, kidnapped, and out of necessity created this wonderful culture, necessity, survival, joy, spirit. And I kind of love the period of the 40s and 50s, the look, the feel, confidence, people dressed to the nines. I really like that. And really, where grew up, I was fortunate to have a really safe, wholesome childhood. You didn't have guys walking around cursing, and it's amazing what's happened today, and if people could see what we were really like at another time, that this is an aberration and it's a very painful thing that's happening. So I like to incorporate that, and then you will see I also made the reference to Africa to honor our roots.
Okay, so you know, I was honored to have you on the program today. We definitely have to do a part two because we only saw a fraction of the digital work. I'd like to thank you for appearing on the show today, and thank the audience for tuning in once again to Corinne's Picks. Thank you, Jeanette. And if you'd like to see more of her art, you can see it at JeanetteMadden.com.